Hello there again. It's nice to be here with you. We have just finished discussing conservation of natural resources 1. I do wish you get the video and actually go through it carefully so that you can better understand what we have as a package for conservation of natural resources 2. Now, before we begin this particular topic, I would like to ask a very important question. And at the end of listening to part 1 and 2, I want you to make up your mind on a particular thing I'm going to ask now. And that thing I'm going to ask is survival and conservation. Which would you prefer? Which would you prefer? Now, of course, survival has to do with the tendency to remain, to live, to continue living. And then conservation has to do with judiciously making use of natural resources. Now, most persons actually tend to survive through several means that are not acceptable during conservation. An instance is this. You have poaching. You have hunting, all right? Now, most persons survive and they are living through poaching. They make money, take care of their families, send their children to school, and that is actually survival. That is the means with which they can earn their own living. But if you look at the other hand, conservation says don't do it. Also, you can come up with another one that has to do with deforestation. Frequent felling down of trees indiscriminately. And some persons actually derive benefit from it. Most persons earn their living from these activities. Bush burning. These are several activities through which a farmer can actually cultivate a large piece of land without spending so much. These are actually ways most persons survive. But if you were to pick, if you were given the option or the choice to live in these both ways, are you going to actually choose survival, or are you actually going to choose conservation? I'll let you be the judge of it. Let's finish up what we have to say concerning conservation of natural resources. Now, in this particular topic on conservation of natural resources, part 2, we will be looking at some exciting subtopics. Now, we will be talking about the benefits of conserving some natural resources. In fact, those natural resources we actually looked at in conservation of natural resources part 1. We're going to be looking at the benefits of conserving them. And then number 2, we're going to be looking at ways of ensuring conservation of natural resources. Now, I would like to pose this another question again. If you are the, let's say, the governor, or let's say an influential figure, a man of power in your community, and you have this idea of conservation, or you have a knowledge that conservation of natural resources is actually a good thing. Now, how do you go about it? What are the ways you are going to put in place to ensure that conservation of natural resources is actually going on in your own community? And then also we're going to be looking at some problems associated with conservation of natural resources. Actually, there are some problems that are encountered while conserving natural resources. So these are simply the areas we are going to be looking at as relating to this second part or episode of conservation of natural resources. Now, at the end of this particular lesson, you are expected to note some important things and should be able to tell these important aspects of this topic. 1, you should be able to mention some benefits of conserving some of these natural resources. What are the benefits? What are the advantages? And number 2, you should be able to mention some of the ways of ensuring conservation of natural resources. Remember, I told you, if you're a man of power in your community, how can you ensure conservation of some natural resources in your own community. And then also the next one is you should be able at the end of this particular class or topic to mention some problems associated with conservation of natural resources. Okay? If you are set, let's dive back into what we have to discuss on this topic. Now, remember we have said so many things about this topic of natural resources, conservation. We've looked at the meaning of natural resources, of which we said they are materials or things that occurs naturally in nature and they are beneficial and useful to man. And then we said they need to be conserved, and we said conservation has to do with judicious use of these natural resources to ensure their continuous availability. And we've seen some of the reasons why we should ensure their continuous availability. One is so that they will not be overexploited, so that they will not be wasted, so as to ensure their continuous availability, to also prevent extinction, and also for research purposes. Most persons benefit so much from research purposes, or learn so much rather, based on several researches that are being carried out on these natural resources. And that's all we discussed in the first aspect. Now here we're looking at their benefits. What are the benefits that holds? What are the advantages we can see or observe while conserving most of these natural resources? Now, one of them, we're going to be looking at the first natural resources, which is wildlife. Wildlife. Now, what is one of the benefits of conserving wildlife? Now, wildlife, like I said, predominantly consists of animals, okay? More of animals, and then you can also talk about some species of plants. Now, one of their benefits is that they are sources of proteins, or they can serve as a source of food for man and other animals. Of course, you know, some of the carnivorous animals, they feed on most of these wildlife, where also humans that are omnivores, they feed on wildlife. Even herbivores, they also feed on these wildlife. Now, herbivores are simply animals that feed only on plants. Omnivores, they feed on both plants and animals. And then carnivores, they feed on just animals, so flesh. All right, so that's one of the benefits of conserving wildlife, so that we'll have enough meat, enough food for man's consumption and also for animal consumption. Number two is that most of these wildlife, they generate revenue for the government. In fact, if you look at some of the ways which the government generates revenue, a government can generate revenue from taxes, okay, which they get, both direct and indirect taxes. They can generate revenue from there. Also, government can generate revenue from aids or help from other people or private individuals. They can also generate aid or revenue from natural resources. Now, there are some countries in Africa that make huge money or make huge revenue from their natural resources, like the zoological gardens. We have game reserves, forest reserves, mostly the game reserves. If you have a game reserve in a particular community, people from time to time go on excursions to learn more about these animals that are being showcased there. You have zoological gardens where you have several types of animals, several species of animals that are found there, and you see their feeding habits and so many other exciting things you're going to discover and learn from there. But as you are learning, before getting into those kind of parks or gardens or zoological gardens or game reserves and all the others, you pay for it. You get the ticket for it. And in so doing, the government generates revenue for themselves and for that community. And then number three is that the development or the creation of these zoological gardens, these game reserves, forest reserves, also creates employment opportunities, because people have to keep those places going and functioning. So it requires man labor, the labor of man. Okay, so it creates employment opportunities. It creates employment opportunities for a lot of persons. And number four, benefit for conserving wildlife is that it serves as a center for relaxation and recreation. Most persons, most families go on vacations to places where you have zoological gardens. They go to vacations on places where you have game reserves, and they have, in fact, they relax themselves, take a picnic out. It serves as a recreational centers for many persons and so on. So it can serve as a center for relaxation. It can also serve as a center for recreation. These are some of the benefits for conserving wildlife. Now, let's take a look at some of the benefits for actually conserving air. Remember, we said that air is actually a mixture of gases. What are the benefits? Remember, one of the methods we said of conserving air, another method for conserving air is planting of trees. The more you keep planting trees actually, they help in reducing the carbon dioxide level or percentage in air, and also increase the oxygen level in air, thereby purifying the air. We're going to come to that. But also note that air is a mixture of gases. It consists of carbon dioxide, it consists of oxygen, it consists of nitrogen, and so on. And of course, plants require carbon dioxide for photosynthesis, and also plants require nitrogen for their essential growth, and also for them to help in the manufacturing of proteins, because proteins are mainly made up of nitrogen. They are fixed directly into the soil. So one of the benefits of conserving air is that it provides carbon dioxide, not just carbon dioxide, it provides nitrogen, not just nitrogen, it provides also oxygen to an extent for respiration. But carbon dioxide and nitrogen can also help in terms of photosynthesis and also help in the building of the plants. And then number two is that, like I said, the nitrogen, it provides nitrogen for plants to manufacture proteins. And nitrogen can be found in the atmosphere. About 78% of nitrogen is found in the atmosphere. And there are several medium or several ways through which nitrogen in the atmosphere can be fixed into the soil and then used by plants to manufacture proteins. One of the ways we talked about is through symbiotic nitrogen fixation, and then we also have the non-symbiotic nitrogen fixation. We also have through lightning and thunderstorm. We also have ammonification and nitrification. These are several ways through which nitrogen can be fixed into the soil. Number three benefit of benefit of air to the ecological system is that it provides oxygen, which is for respiration. Respiration is actually the breaking down of complex food substances by a series of chemical reactions which are controlled by enzymes in order to release energy. Now, the major purpose for respiration is to release energy. So oxygen makes that happen. Also, the burning, combustion has to do with burning, okay? Domestically, we need combustion. Factory-wise or industrially, we also need combustion. Combustion is needed for us to cook our foods, okay? To prepare our food. It is needed for so many processes industrially, in the manufacturing of several chemicals and so many other things. Combustion is actually needed, very important. So one of the benefits of air, of conserving air, is that it provides oxygen for respiration as well as combustion. And then also, let's take a look at benefits of conserving water. Benefits of conserving water. One of the benefits of conserving water is that it can be used to generate electricity. can be used to generate or provide electricity. Yes, in Nigeria, we have what we call the hydroelectric power located in Kainji. Okay, there is a dam there that helps in conserving water. Okay, that water can be used to provide electricity, which is supplied to several communities and areas, mostly in Nigeria. Okay, so we have the hydroelectric power as one of the benefits of conserving water. Number two benefit of conserving water is that it can be used for tourist or recreational purposes. Most persons go to places where you have beaches, okay, to the beach, and they relax there. It also serves as a tourist site or center where people from different parts of the world come to visit, and it can also be a recreational center for most persons. So one of the benefits of conserving water is that it can be used as a tourist site or center, and also can be used as a recreational or relaxation center. All right. And then number three, it also can be used for agricultural, domestical, and industrial purposes. Yes, of course, water can be used as can be used in agriculture. And one of the ways we add water to agriculture is called irrigation. Okay, irrigation has a whole lot of importance. In fact, plants need water to carry out photosynthesis. It's very important. Okay, and also young seedlings needs water for germination. They need it for germination. Also, domestically, we use water in a lot of ways for bathing, for cooking, for washing, and so on. Also, industrially, water has so many uses. It has so many uses in the production of several chemicals and then byproducts in the industries. Also, another benefit of water, conserving water, is that water serves as a medium of transportation. Of course, we have several media of transportation. We have land, we have the air, and then we also have water. In Nigeria also, in the riverine areas, mostly in the south, most persons travel from one place to another using water as a medium of transportation. Is actually very exciting, very exciting. So it can serve as a medium of transportation. Now, another type of natural resources we are going to be looking at that should be conserved, or the benefits of conserving these natural resources, is the soil. Of course, we said that the soil is the topmost layer of the earth on which plants grow, or you can say plants carry out agricultural activities, okay, and animals live and also carry out their own activities. So the soil can be seen as a place that provides support for agricultural and farming activities. Nobody farms in water. You can also farm in the atmosphere. Where farming activities and agricultural activities takes place is on the soil. Okay, so one of the benefits is that it provides the medium, it provides the means or support for agricultural and farming activities. Number two is that it provides the support for the habitation of some living organisms. It simply means that some living organisms actually dwell or live or make the soil their habitat. Now we have organisms like we have the termites. They can be found in the soil. We have earthworms. They can also be found in the soil. Some microorganisms are also found in the soil, and these are all living organisms. So they make the soil their habitat. So it can also serve as a habitat. And then number three, it is also a source of obtaining several mineral resources. Crude oil can be obtained from the soil. Bitumen can also be obtained from the soil. Clay is also obtained from the soil. Coal is obtained from the soil. Glass, which is sand, which is made from sand, is obtained from the soil. Granite, iron ore, gold, and so on. In fact, their sources is actually from the soil. These are important and useful mineral resources that can be gotten from the soil. And then also, let's take a look at forest, conservation of the forest. Now, the forest, there are several benefits that can be gotten from conserving the forest. One of the benefits from conserving the forest is that the forest provides medicinal herbs for curing several diseases, Now, if you go to, in most areas in Africa, including Nigeria, we have several medicinal herbs that can be gotten from the roots of plants, from the bark of plants, also from the leaves of some plants, and they have been potent in curing several diseases. And of course, like I said, they are obtained and they can be sourced from the forest, In the early days, our ancestors, they had little or no knowledge of the white medicines, okay, or the chemicals. They actually used herbs gotten from plants to cure several illnesses and as well as diseases. And then number two benefit is that the forest helps to purify the atmosphere. It helps to purify the atmosphere. Now, like I said before, the forest consists majorly of trees. They consist majorly of trees and plants, all right? Now, one of the importance of having trees and plants all around residential areas is actually that these trees and plants, their byproducts, help to purify the atmosphere. The atmosphere consists of carbon dioxide as well as oxygen. However, the oxygen content in the atmosphere is 21, while that of carbon dioxide is 0.03. But during respiration, the carbon dioxide concentration or level in the atmosphere increases slightly, and that of oxygen reduces also slightly. But please take note, a slight increase in the carbon dioxide level in the atmosphere can bring about a greenhouse effect. Now, the reason is simple, that carbon dioxide is actually a greenhouse gas. Now, one of the ways we reduce the carbon dioxide level in the atmosphere is by planting of trees. Why? During photosynthesis, plants make use of carbon dioxide, water, sunlight, and the chlorophyll in the green plants to manufacture their own food. And one of the byproducts they release is oxygen. So it means that during photosynthesis, oxygen is being released to the atmosphere and carbon dioxide is being removed from the atmosphere. Now, purification of the atmosphere or air or pollution actually can also be defined as increasing the carbon dioxide level in the atmosphere and reducing the oxygen level. And then purification of the air is actually increasing the oxygen level and then reducing the carbon dioxide level. And so having forest around, I'm not saying your houses should be full of all trees, but planting of trees is encouraged. And that brings about afforestation, all right? Planting of trees. It helps to purify the atmosphere or air through photosynthesis. And then number three is that these forests can be used, in fact, they are so beneficial, all right? Now, we talked about initially about deforestation, which has to do with the felling down of trees. Now, deforestation is not actually all bad. You can use the timber that is being gotten out from deforestation to carry out a whole lot of things. It can be used in making furniture, it can be used in building of houses, it can also be used in manufacturing of paper and so many other useful materials or materials that are useful and beneficial to man. However, what we're actually saying is the indiscriminate excessive felling down of these trees. So once we conserve this forest, we have so many trees. We have so many trees. And from there we can provide as much as we can, timbers that can also be useful to us as humans, all right? So these are some of the ways, the benefits of conserving the forest. Number 4 is that it creates employment opportunities. Of course, it creates employment opportunities. Conserving the forest creates employment opportunities. So many persons can work in forest reserve areas. So many persons can work as lumbers in order to provide timber that can be used in so many ways. Okay, so it creates actually employment opportunities. And then number 5, it serves as a site for, or a basis for research, recreational purposes, and also tourist purposes. That's where we have forest reserves. These forest reserves, like I said, can be used for research. It can also be used for tourism, and also can be used as a recreational center. Lastly is benefits of conserving mineral resources. Now, mineral resources, I've mentioned a whole lot of them. We have the bitumen, we have the gold, we have so many of them, the kaolin, we have the diamond, the crude oil, we have the coal, and so many other things, mineral resources. Now, what are the benefits of conserving them, not overexploiting them, not wasting them? Okay, one of the benefits is that there will be excessive supply, there will be availability of fuel. Now, the availability of this fuel mostly is to drive our engines or machines. Or, life here on Earth is mainly based on machines, all right? So driving of machines using fuel is possible when the mineral resources or these crude oil are actually conserved. Number 2 benefits of conserving mineral resources is that it is a source of ornaments. Ornaments are actually beautiful materials or byproducts that are used for decorating our houses and also ourselves, wearing as an adornment on ourselves. Okay, you see some ornaments used in decorating Christmas trees. You can still see them used in decorating the interior of houses and also to an extent the exterior of some houses. Some persons use them as bangles or bracelets rather. We have chains, rings, and so on. They can be sourced from mineral resources. You have gold necklaces, you have gold wristwatches, you have gold bracelets, and so many other things that can be sourced from these mineral resources. Okay, so these are some of the benefits of conserving mineral resources. We also have another important benefit for conserving mineral resources is that these mineral resources can serve as actually revenue for the government. They generate revenue for the government. For instance, we talked about crude oil. Crude oil generates a whole lot of revenue for Nigeria as a country. It is one of the ways through which the government generates enough revenue to actually carry out several projects and so many things to run this country. So one of the benefits of conserving these natural resources is it generates revenue for the government. And then also finally, it creates employment opportunities, which is of course true. Okay, places where people go to mine. In fact, people are involved in mining of these natural resources in several areas, and they pay a whole good lot of money. Okay, mining and extracting most of these mineral resources. So that's also another means of creating employment opportunities. Now, let's take a look at some of the problems that are associated with conservation of natural resources. Now, if one wants to conserve natural resources, for instance, you want to actually conserve these natural resources, what are the problems you are going to face? Take an instance. If you are in power and probably you are the leader of a particular community, how do you carry out conservation of natural resources? Or what are the problems do you think you can encounter when trying to conserve several natural resources in your community? Now, one of the major problems that is actually encountered is called ignorance. Ignorance. Ignorance has been one of the major challenge, mostly ignorance of the populace, the people you are actually leading. It has been one of the major problems associated with conservation. Now, when there is ignorance, you will have the problem of soil erosion. When there is ignorance, you will have the problem of overgrazing by livestock, which is being allowed and prompted by human activities. You also have the problem of indiscriminate hunting and poaching. When there is ignorance, you have indiscriminate hunting and poaching because they wouldn't understand, they don't have the knowledge or education, or that they are not aware of the effect, the negative effect that these activities or these actions are actually causing them, they themselves as humans and everyone at large. And also, when there is ignorance, you have the problem of indiscriminate bush burning and felling of trees. Most times, these are some of the activities that are associated, or problems that are actually associated with conservation, and makes it very difficult for conservation of natural resources to take place in a community. The second important problem associated with conservation of natural resources is occurrence of natural disaster. Occurrence of natural disaster. A whole forest can be wiped out based on natural disaster. Also, natural disaster can bring about the death of organisms, wildlife. Natural disasters can also bring about so many hazards in our environment. It can bring about the destruction of several mineral resources in land and so many other places where they can be found. So occurrence of natural disaster and ignorance are major causes or major problems that are associated with natural resources. And I told you that in terms of ignorance, some of the problems that can be associated with ignorance includes the problem of soil erosion. We have the problem of burning of bushes. We have the problem of deforestation. We have the problem of illegal hunting and poaching and so many others. Okay, we have also the problem of poor farming practice, adopting poor farming practice like monoculture. Okay, is a poor farming practice. Even bush burning is also a poor farming practice. All these can be sort of like prohibited when education is actually in place. Now, the next thing is also that can bring about, can pose a problem to this thing is pollution. I can also classify pollution under ignorance, because most times what brings about land pollution, water pollution, and air pollution is actually ignorance. Actually ignorance. And then finally, let's take a look at ways of ensuring conservation of natural resources. How do we ensure that natural resources are actually conserved? One of the ways we have seen before is establishment of game reserves. These are important ways. If you are a leader, if you are someone in authority over a particular community, and you want to ensure conservation of natural resources and also ensure that revenue comes to your community, these are some of the things you put in place. One of them is establishment of game reserves and zoological gardens. You go to some places, they have forest reserves, they have forests, they have wildlife, and yet they don't have any establishment. The people in authority, there is no establishment of game reserves, there is no establishment of zoological gardens. Now, game reserves are necessary for the protection of wildlife, for recreational purposes, and also for scientific research purposes. Next, we have several game reserves in Nigeria. We have game reserves in Nigeria. We have the one they call the Yankari Game Reserve, which is in Bauchi State. We have the Bogu Game Reserve, which is in Niger State. We have the Shasha River Forest, which is found in Ogun State. We also have the Olumo Forest Reserve, which is in Kwara State. We have the Mamu River Forest, which we can see in Anambra State. And then we also have the Zamfara Forest Reserve, which is also in Zamfara State. Another way we can ensure conservation of natural resources is establishment of agencies for conservation. Establishment of agencies. This is where the government comes in. The government ensures that agencies are established to help in conservation of natural resources. So conservation agencies, they help to ensure that natural resources are conserved. Some of the examples of agencies of conservation include Nigerian Conservation Foundation. We have the FEPA, which is Federal Environmental Protection Agency. We also have the Department of Wildlife Conservation. We have Forest Department. We have the Ministries of Agriculture, the River Basin Development Authority, and so many other conservation agencies that are found in Nigeria. And then number three, way we can ensure the conservation of natural resources, mostly if you are a person in power. If these are what we expect from the government, these are what we expect from the senators and so many persons in power. Establish game reserves, it helps a lot. We've seen some of the benefits of establishing game reserves. Number two is that you establish conservation agencies to help monitor and help also ensure that these natural resources are actually conserved. And then number three is establishment of conservation laws. The government should set up laws that will regulate several activities like felling of trees, poaching, hunting, bush burning, deforestation, and so many other activities. Okay, so government should set up these laws so as to control these actions. And then finally, conservation education. Conservation education. Remember I said that one of the major problems associated with conservation is ignorance. And one of the ways we can combat ignorance is education. Educating the public. It involves enlightening people or the public about the need to conserve natural resources and the consequences of not conserving these natural resources. There are several consequences. Time will fail us to start looking at some of the consequences that are involved when some of these natural resources are not conserved. I've given you one. It can lead to extinction, okay, of some of these natural resources, their extinction. So conservation education should be a must. We should be hearing it on radios. We should be hearing it, seeing it on social medias and so many other platforms. In fact, even in schools, conservation education should be taught. Seminars should be held, meetings should be held on these things. And I believe in no distant time, we will have more availability of these natural resources and our stay and our livelihood will be protected. Now, I'm still leaving you with the same question. Survival and conservation. Which do you choose? Now, before we go, let's take a look at some questions using our ExamGuide app. We're taking a look at just very few, just 3 questions we're going to consider generally under conservation of natural resources. Now look at this question here that said, which of the following activities will help prevent endangered species from extinction? Help endangered species from extinction. A, is it uncontrolled killing of the species? B, is it temporary maintenance of species in zoological gardens? C, is it regular irrigation of their natural habitat? And D, is it regular clearing of the forest vegetation? The correct option is B, which is temporary maintenance, that is maintaining the zoological gardens. Number 2 is, which of the following practices does not contribute to intensive depletion of forest reserves in West Africa rather. I take that again. Which of the following practices does not contribute to intense depletion of forest resources in West Africa? Is it regrowing of forest trees? Is it use of powerful tools for felling trees? Is it clearance of forest for cash crop? Is it use of fire for hunting in the forest? The correct answer is A, that which of the following practices does not contribute to intensive depletion? The correct answer is A, which is regrowing of forest trees, and that has to do with afforestation. And then finally for today, the burning of farmlands should be discouraged because 1, is it destroys the organic components of the soil, B, destroys some plant pests, C, increases the population of wild animals on the farm, and D, increases the dormancy period of some seeds. The correct answer is that it destroys the organic components, that is some soil organisms in the soil. That is one of the major reasons why it should be discouraged. Thank you for participating in today's class. You can practice more questions using your ExamGuide app. The app scores and gives a detailed explanation of all the questions at the end of your practice test. You can also learn particular topics of interest with different modes like study mode, mock mode, and even practice mode. It also has other features that makes learning very fun. Now, it is a must for all serious students. Download from www.examguide.com if you don't have it yet. See you in the next class. Don't forget to subscribe to our channels, hit the notification bell, and share the videos to your loved ones and friends that will benefit from it. Bye for now.